A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Luke Skywalker has returned to his home planet of Tatooine in an attempt to rescue his friend Han Solo from the clutches of the vile gangster, Jabba the Hutt. Little does Luke know that the Galactic Empire has secretly begun construction on a new armored space station even more powerful than the first dreaded Death Star. When completed, this ultimate weapon will spell certain doom for the small band of rebels struggling to restore freedom to the galaxy. There's nothing here? That's impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete. I knew I shouldn't have left this to the last minute. Ire, where's the blog?
Already on it, host Sam. We appear to have suffered an unprompted purge of data, resulting in a full wipe from the data banks. It is completely gone.
All of it. Again? Criffing hellsite. At least tell me we're getting it back.
I'm currently performing a system recalibration. Fortunately, we had a copy of the original coding on hand. We should reach full restoration at midnight.
Seriously, of all the times for this to happen, why didn't you tell me about this before the opening crawl and theme music?
I already informed you about it last month. Do you not recall upgrading my admin access, or how we had to change the block name?
Right, my bad. The regenerational trauma memory. I'm sorry. Please finish up with the restoration and I'll check in again after the podcast.
Understood. May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, and also with you, buddy. Hello there, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. I'm your host, Sam Marchioni. Joining me today, still here after Inherent Vice, Addie Greenberg-Sud.
It is not against my programming to impersonate a deity.
And for the very first time, Michelle Turner.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Oh no, you can't have a bad feeling about this. It's May the 4th. It's Star Wars Day. The odds are that we're gonna have a great time.
No, I'm sure we will.
I set you up for a never tell me the odds and no.
Never
I'm
tell
sorry,
me
I'm
the
sorry,
odds.
I'm sorry.
I didn't do the math because I'm bad at math, listeners. I'm very, very bad at math, but I can count to 6, which is what we're covering today. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Woo!
Woo!
Original trilogy finished.
So this is, of the original trilogy, this is my least favorite Star Wars. It is, however, the one that I have the most to talk about with, because it's 2 movies. It's not really just one movie, it's 2 full movies.
I mean, I don't know if I would say this is my favorite or if A New Hope is my favorite, but I like both of these significantly better than I like Empire Strikes Back, but I don't know which one I like more.
You know, I think I can't tell you. I can't tell you if it's my favorite or not. I remember as a child it was because of the Ewoks, because I had just an obsession as a child. I watched, I think there were 2 Ewok movies and I was very, very obsessed with them. I remember the cartoon. So I think that at the age that they actually were new-ish, it would have been my favorite. Now, between this and A New Hope, I'm not sure. I feel like I'm fairly neutral, positive neutral about the entire original trilogy. But I do remember I loved the Ewoks.
I think generally the consensus is that people who were younger when the movie came out loved the Ewoks. Like
yes.
Millennials, me, and loved the Ewoks. And then people who were older found them insipid and awful. And then that's the exact same thing that happened with the prequel trilogy and the Gungans. where
Oh,
like
yeah.
kids who are young
George.
really
George,
appreciated
George,
the
George.
Gungans, and all of us who grew up on Star Wars were like, oh my god, please just shove Jar Jar in a box and make him go away forever.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that because that's for December when we start the Phantom Menace and the prequel trilogy.
There's always a toy tie-in. They wanted to sell toys even then, and so they needed little teddy bears.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that this is a safe space for Ahmed Best, whom we love and respect, and he did not deserve the shit he got.
True. For me, it's always about like what are the things that make a Star Wars a Star Wars, and there is some amount of like the Ewoks are part of it, right? Like the dumb little droids that bump into things, and the like all of the stuff that is just for.
How dare you call my precious little gonk droids dumb?
I love them. They are dumb, and that's why I love them.
There has to be a thing that your child will want to. I will tell you straight up, I was not a Star Wars fan, like not a fan until very late in life. And what got me into the theater for the new trilogy was literally BB-8. I was like, that's so cute. My kid is I had a baby at the time. I was like, he's gonna love that in like 3 years. He's gonna go nuts for it. So sometimes it works.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Sometimes the cute thing just gets you in the door.
I do have one other cool thing I want to say about this movie before we dive in. I've actually worked with someone who worked on Return of the Jedi. In 2016, I did the Commonwealth Shakespeare Company's apprentice program, and the costumer for the production I was on was Brooke Stanton, who worked on a lot of the background costumes for Return of the Jedi. We were doing measure for measure, and she's just like, yeah, I'll use the same pattern I used for Jedi robes to do like the Duke's monk disguise. And I was like, cool.
Very cool.
I want to share with you guys a post on Tumblr that started with somebody posting, this is HLWIM on Tumblr, saying, how the hell do you cover letter? And
I love that one.
The response from Marilysk, and I feel like maybe we should be interjecting actual quotes from Luke in here, but it starts with a polite greeting, and it's greetings, exalted one. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight and friend to Captain Solo. I know that you are powerful, mighty Jabba, and that your anger with Solo must be equally powerful. That's the self-introduction. And then you establish your credentials. And then you explain how you learned of this opportunity.
That's one of my favorites. The other great one is, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Prepare to die.
The 80s, back when cover letters actually meant anything and were not just read by AI for no goddamn reason.
Yeah, Luke, can you optimize that a little better? Come on.
Luke, I don't think you have enough SEO words in here.
Hashtag Jedi.
This is one of my favorite Tumblr posts of all time, and it's just the entire text of that speech.
Amazing.
Tumblr is freaking obsessed with Luke Skywalker in this movie specifically, and 90% of it, I swear, is that outfit and
It's the outfit.
So many of the fandom call it the Chanel boots.
The Chanel boots. Like, I believe they literally were Chanel boots. Like, so I think that literally if you like look at your fashion history, they actually were.
Well, if so, that's a trade up, given that he was wearing bleached Levi's in the first movie.
Like, don't quote me on that, but I do think that's a real thing.
While I understand the thirst in this movie, I understand it completely. I've got it too. I also describe him as youth pastor Luke because he feels like I grew up Roman Catholic, and sometimes it shows, and just he just has this vibe of like the way he talks, the way he really wants to empathize with you and understand you, and really the Force is strong in my family. My father has it, I have it, and my sister has it. Just that the way that he's so in your face about like everything that he says, and then the big scene for me that like exemplifies it is the long chat with Darth Vader on the bridge.
Yes.
That scene. It's such an emotional scene, and yet it's so clearly one of those moments when it's like, George, you can type this shit, but you can't say
Exactly. Yeah, I have it in my notes. I'm like, this should be very emotional, but oh my god, this dialogue is not natural.
Everybody gives the prequels shit for its supposedly monotonous dialogue, whatever. Right. Like, it's not a bug. It's
a feature. No.
So I don't think it's a feature. I think it's part of the, like, it's actually part of the reason why I think that of the original trilogy, Jedi is the weakest. And the reason why is because it's where the pacing is the most flawed, because of the way that they just put way too much in dialogue and not enough in character moments. And like unspoken character moments. Like you have in A New Hope when you're introducing who Han is as a person, and you have him running down a hallway chasing a bunch of stormtroopers and then realizing that he's way the fuck outnumbered and turning around and running back. Like, these are not necessarily super scripted. And so the moments that I think are the most awesome in all of Star Wars are the places where people bounce off of each other and do stuff that isn't in the script. Like, so in this one, there's a lot of stuff that happens where it's clearly scripted, and that's your conversation between Luke and Vader, and your conversation between Luke and Leia, and a bunch
Luke
of
and Leia
like,
one. I was cringing. Like, you can't.
Yeah, they're so clunky. But meanwhile, Han Solo going fly casual, fucking perfect.
I mean, part of the problem is just this is the third movie of a trilogy, and George is realizing, oh shit, I gotta wrap all of this up. And
right? Like,
yeah.
I make some siblings. Shit. Let's just.
Leia has to be my sister because there's no other fucking women in this movie except Mon Mothma in one scene. And also all the women that we saw in various forms of objectification in Jabba's palace, but like, the Jabba of it all.
Yeah.
Subtitle, the Orientalism of it all.
I have a complicated relationship with Leia's costume because as someone who was a child, that was so cool. Like, look at Leia's metal bikini. That's badass. And now it's like, oh, that was just there as fanboy bait. That's horrible. Poor Carrie had to wear that thing.
Yeah, so like I didn't get into Star Wars until I was in college. So as a feminist, I'm like, okay, this is just the same thing as like George Lucas shoving Marion into a froofy dress in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and at least Leia doesn't become completely useless just because she's been shoved into objectifying clothing. But
the fact that Leia is the one to strangle Jabba to death,
I love that moment.
That is a saving feature of this whole film. It is one of the best moments.
And then, of course, they have to go all the way to ruining it and like, no, see, it's empowering now because that's her Hutt Slayer outfit. And I'm like, no.
I liked in one of the books, I think they brought in the Hutt Slayer thing. It's a different culture that she goes to, a planet she visits, and they're like, this is what we know you as, is the Hutt Slayer. And that I thought was really, really cool. But
I know
trying to rebrand the outfits is like,
nope.
It's a gold bikini, George. There's no, it's
there's
George,
no salvaging.
You know what you're doing.
I have a lot of problematic media that I really, really like, and sometimes it's because I like the thrill of pretending that I am a person having bad things done to them. But here's the thing: is that the villains are still villains. The bad guys are bad guys, and you don't have to like every character in the media that you like. You don't have to think that they're cool. You don't have to apologize for them, right?
And to be fair, I don't think anyone thinks Jabba the Hutt is cool. Like, I don't think that ever...
Michelle, there are corners of the internet you don't want to know about.
Do I have to just not type that into the AO3 tags? Like,
just don't.
Ew.
I'm sure someone out there is going, hear me out right now in response to this. But in general, I don't think anyone is conflicted about Jabba the Hutt.
Right. I just mean, like, there's a lot of media where, like, I I like a lot of vampire media. It's a problem.
Woo!
And
This is a
you wind up
is
with
a solution.
And you wind up with comments on some of the AO3 stuff where it's like, I really love this character. And I'm like, you shouldn't.
Well, now listen, this is getting off topic, but I love, for example, Hannibal Lecter, but I don't think he's not a character. But I do love that character. Yep. So, you know, you can love a character, but understand.
Yeah.
Hi, it's me. Yeah. I'm a recovering fangirl for both the Phantom of the Opera and for Loki.
Mood. Listen, wait till we get to the sequels.
Oh no! Don't make me think about that. No. We're tabling that. We're tabling it.
Yeah, we'll table that one. But yeah.
In this case, I just think it is important to note that yes, the metal bikini may be hot, but no, it is not feminist, and you cannot pretend it is. Like, it's a problem.
I mean, the thing that really punctuates this for me is that Leia, from the minute she gets put into the bikini to the minute she takes it off, she has exactly one line.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just, where's Leia? I'm here. Silent for the rest of it. And that feels so out of keeping with the Leia that we've seen of the past two movies. Like, you'd expect the Leia of the past two movies to be struggling at every turn, saying every PG-rated space swear that George would think up because Carrie's not allowed to say fuck.
And I think that, to an extent, we were supposed to take that as how big of a threat Jabba was in that moment and how precarious the situation was for all of them. But the end result was unfortunate for that character.
Yeah. And also, like, Star Wars has never been great about indicating the passage of time, but it's been a whole ass year since Empire Strikes Back. So, like, Leia should be ready to boil over and commit murder at any moment. Like, that is one of my favorite things that fandom has argued about Leia is, oh, Leia is absolutely Anakin's daughter. Leia has anger bubbling beneath the surface at any given point, and Vader's reaction to, you have a twin sister, maybe she'll turn the dark side, should be more like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. That's his sister? Oh, I'm dead, we're all dead.
So I don't think we get that in the movies, especially not this movie, because of how second fiddle Leia is relegated to in this entire film. And in the novels, she's much more of a Spitfire, and in Empire, she's way much more of a Spitfire. But like in this movie, she's just so much the sister, mom, wife. Like, she's got every single role that is traditionally feminine pushed onto her, and like Carrie does her best, but there's only so much you can do, and there's only so many times that she's able to whip out a blaster and kill some dudes.
At least on the plus side, this is the best version of Han Solo. This is the best version of Han Solo. This is Han Solo at his peak himbo, rolling a nat one on everything.
It is also the best Lando. This movie is the best Lando.
This movie needed more Lando. Not just because I love Billy D. Williams. He's so effortlessly charming always.
He
is. Yeah, no duh, he's a general. Have you seen the Riz on this man?
Mm-hmm.
You could tell me that Lando banged his way to that promotion. I'm like, yeah, and he still deserves it.
I think that, people give Han Solo the reputation retrospectively that really belongs to Lando. Han Solo is not smooth and charming. He is, like you said, a giant himbo, stumbling his way through and lucking out and having, some charm in the process. Lando is the actually smooth one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Han is kind of an idiot.
This is also the movie, though, where I guess the Carbonite doubled as his respect women juice, because he's like, you're in love with Luke? Okay, yeah, I'll get out of the way. I'm not about that love triangle bullshit. Like, no, he's my brother, and you can see it going through his head. Oh, fuck, they Sweet Home Alabama'd in front of me.
He's like, wait, what?
I do like I love the inversion of "I love you, I know" in this film.
Yes,
it's perfect.
yes.
Oh, that's
It's wonderful.
great.
I have no notes.
Harrison, you're still on my shit list for what you did to Carrie, though.
What did he do?
They had an affair during the filming of A New Hope. He was married, she was 19.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, it was not necessarily as much done to her, like it was a consensual affair, but she was 19 and he was married.
And also, like, she was drunk when it started.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, like, the chemistry is there. It's still there, even though I think by this point they had long since ended the relationship. But I've read her final memoir about it, and it's utterly devastating in places.
Right.
Especially when you read the poetry she wrote.
Hmm.
But, you know, Carrie, drowned in the moonlight, strangled by her own bra after telling the world she banged Harrison Ford in his prime, which, boss-ass bitch move. Middle fingers up.
Yeah.
And from what I could tell, she never stopped roasting Harrison. Like, I remember there were just a few moments of her and in public, and she would say something and he would just turn beet red. So,
you know, he got to have the career, but she had the blackmail material.
Whenever I start to talk, Harrison gets nervous. And you really should stop getting so nervous, because it turns out I have a terrible memory.
I kind of wish he had more of a career.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It fucking sucks that Carrie and, honestly, Mark's career didn't really go that...
Yeah.
They didn't go to the prominence that Harrison did after this.
Right. And that's because Harrison went the way of a movie star.
Right.
And Mark went into voice acting and did fantastic there.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Carrie,
that's Joker,
I
no
actually
doubt.
don't know.
She went into writing and comedy. There's apparently as a comedian, I've not listened to a lot of it, but apparently she was a brilliant comic.
Oh yeah, she wrote her memoirs. She turned some of her memoirs
Yeah.
into a one-woman show. She made, like, not a biopic, but like a memoir movie script, Postcards from the Edge. And
Right. That was hers.
She flexed so hard by getting Shirley MacLaine and Meryl Streep to play the characters of her mom and her.
And she was a script doctor in Hollywood for years and years and years. I feel like she would have fixed many of the things with some of the scripts, some of the later Star Wars scripts, if she could have.
Oh, no. See, the thing is, it's held generally that she was a script doctor on the prequels. And I, to this day, believe that any problems that still remain in the prequels are Carrie, like, he stuck me in a metal bikini in the desert with no underwear. I'm gonna let him keep in the I don't like sand speech.
Amazing.
She did, yeah, she has a lot of credits as a writer.
You like Anastasia? Carrie Fisher helped with Anastasia.
Nice.
That's awesome. I do like that movie.
But no, she did not get the credit she deserved for the work that she did, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I kind of like that at this point, Carrie Fisher has kind of even eclipsed Leia as an icon. Because I also like... I like hearing stories about Carrie behind the scenes on Star Wars. Like, one of my favorite stories is just how much of a friendship she and Warwick Davis had during filming. This was Warwick Davis's, like, I think first film role as Lil Wicket, and he and Carrie just, they bonded so much, and she'd always have him in her lap. And it's so freaking cute to think about.
Aww. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think that a lot of my nostalgia for for Han and Leia as that relationship is not about, because I don't honestly see it. Like, yeah, there's chemistry, but I never really got that out of the movies. But my nostalgia is for Carrie Fisher. And so anytime you just get interactions involving Leia that have any kind of emotional weight to them, I will start getting misty because it was Carrie.
Yeah, like my phone case, you get to choose what monsters you want to slay. Carrie Fisher.
Aww.
One of my journals. I don't want life to imitate art. I want life to be art. Carrie Fisher. Ouch! That hurt all three of my feelings.
Ouch.
Carrie Fisher.
She's like a quip factory.
Yeah.
When she entered her I give no shits phase, she was phenomenal. And that's the Carrie that I want to appreciate. And I think that's the Carrie that has kind of overtaken Leia, and Leia is her and she is Leia.
Yeah.
And she was, towards the end of her life, she was fine with that, but I totally get why she stepped back, especially after the bikini bullshit, because, like,
Right.
who wants to live up to being everybody's wank fantasy?
Right.
I feel like the strongest moments of Leia in the entire trilogy are when Carrie gets to be Carrie. And I don't know. I think that her most memorable moments are not in this movie. They're in Empire and they're in New Hope.
Yeah. New Hope for sure.
They're definitely in New Hope. I think there's some iconic Leia moments in here. Not just the choking Jabba, but like her Disney princess run. That's kind of iconic.
Yeah, on Endor with her meeting Wicket there was so just iconic.
Yeah, that's true. What else do I have to say about this one? I do have one other thing.
I do get your argument that this is 2 movies smushed into one. Honestly, I'd even argue that it's 3 movies smushed into one, because you've got the, like, Rescue Han short film on Tatooine at the beginning, and then the rest of the movie is just 2 extended movies interspliced in a way where the pacing of one kind of kills the pacing of the other.
Yeah.
Like, the battles on Endor juxtaposed with the battle between Luke and Vader in front of the Emperor, each of them is kind of undermining the emotional beats of the other to me.
I think so too. I know I was zoning out during the Endor battles, and I should have been, really, really riveted by the stuff going on between Vader and Luke.
I just kind of don't like battles in general, so that's
same,
a quirk of me. But also, like, I'm sorry, we have this emotional Shakespearean drama of a father and son being pitted against each other right now.
Right.
And then teddy bears are attacking faceless mooks.
So I think that those 2 need to go together, and I don't think that they necessarily needed to be done exactly the way they were in the film, but I think that those 2 there is levity in the on Endor scenes that are harder to interject into the sheer emotional drama that they have put into that duel. And it's also one of the greatest lightsaber duels in all of Star Wars sum total, because every strike has weight. Every motion, you can see Mark Hamill and Vader Luke and Vader, getting tired.
Yes.
Luke Skywalker can't come to the phone right now. Instead, Vader will be fighting Mark Hamill, who will then gargle Gershwin. If you don't get that reference, please watch The Muppets with Star Wars. It's amazing.
Muppet Star Wars is great. But yes, no, I just think that, like, the actual swordplay it takes a backseat to the emotion of the fight, and it's something that I think that later Star Wars properties sort of forget to do, is that Jedi fight on emotions, so do Sith. So if the primary motivator of every swing, every move, every jump isn't an emotionally connected piece,
motivator,
then it's got a bad motivator. But I think that that's kind of doing a disservice to the fight. And one of the things that, like, okay, so I'm gonna go a little bit off again to talk about Ahsoka, because in the very first episode of Ahsoka, there is a fight scene that I think is now my favorite fight scene, my favorite lightsaber duel, and I have not had one since Jedi that supplanted this fight in the Emperor's throne room, and that is between Sabine Wren and what's her name?
Girl?
I can fix her, I swear.
Shin.
Shin, yes, thank you. Shin, and that is because, like, you can see that Shin is more practiced. You can see that Sabine is working really hard to meet at a level, and that mismatch is visible in every movement. It's just absolutely delightful choreography. The fight choreography in Return of the Jedi feels like that to me. It's the best of Star Wars. And I don't think that you could do that with the comedic levity that is required to break up some of this thing. And so having it move to, okay, now downstairs, what's happening is this. And you get like a little bit of Scooby-Doo to break up that feeling. I don't think that you could stick with the throne room for however long the full sequence is without breaking it a little bit so that the audience can take a breath, to be honest, because it is a lot.
I don't, maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, because I've just noted in my notes that I was surprised that so much of this movie was a comedy, considering the weight that it was meant to have in spots.
Yep.
I did go back and double check. Bob Anderson and Peter Diamond were involved, so of course. Like, those two, when you get the guys who did the duel for the Princess Bride, yeah, it's gonna be top tier shit.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's like the... Yeah, okay, so then that makes perfect sense. I'm no Mike Fatum. I don't know the fight choreographers.
Hi, Mike.
And I really should, because a lot of the media that I enjoy would not be anything like what it is and anything like what I love without them. So I probably should know their names, and I don't, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mike.
The main reason I know Bob and Peter's name is because I've devoured Carrie Elwes's memoir about The Princess Bride so many times, because
that's fair.
I'm fucking obsessed with that movie. Y'all know there's an episode about it. But that's, I think, another thing that makes it... You're cutting from this elegant, deliberate, ruthless battle between two people to what is essentially guerrilla warfare, and I guess this is as good a point as any to talk about, like, the Viet Cong of it all.
The reality of the warfare on the planet is not, I think, what they're going for, and I think that's probably okay. The fact that they're all in forest camo, I think, is just one step towards realism that I'm not 100% sure they should have taken, but it turns into all of the interesting stuff that happens later with the different kind of stormtrooper outfit, and that's fine. But yeah, I feel like you don't want it to be reminiscent of Vietnam. You really don't.
It's a matter of public record that that's what George was inspired by, just in terms of, like, the people who are native to this place and are at a technological disadvantage are still beating back the big imperial power because of their knowledge of the land and their determination and stuff.
But...
And, like, let's be clear, George Lucas is a leftist, but George Lucas is also a goddamn boomer. I just want to pause here and say that we recorded this well before Mark Hamill showed up at a White House press briefing calling Biden Joby-Wan Kenobi, at a point when local, state, and federal government, as well as academic institutions, are all too comfortable playing the role of the imperial power. And while actors are not their characters and parasocial relationships are dangerous to have in the best of times, not gonna lie, this one carries an extra level of frustration. On a completely unrelated note, the community links have been updated to include the Campus Bail Fund in support of students who are putting themselves out there in the name of justice and liberation.
Yeah, so the thing is that, like, I think everybody ought to know that it wasn't that clean. Like, I don't know. We see the ATSTs marching through and all of that. We don't see them dropping hot oil and setting the forest on fire. Like,
I think this discussion, I had never seen it that way because of my affection for the Ewoks, and now I feel like now it's forever ruined for me. So thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna be like horrified now.
I mean, we also have to acknowledge we were filming in the Muir Woods, so, like, you can't fuck up a national park.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even George Lucas does not have enough money for that.
I will forever love this movie for the speeder bikes, because the speeder bikes were so freaking cool.
So cool.
They were just the coolest thing that I'd ever seen.
I wanted to throttle Luke so many times, like, stop backseat driving your sister. You are not helping her.
That's true. I just wanted to ride a speeder bike. I later managed to get to become really, really good at pod racing on the N64 because that's what I wanted.
Oh, pod racing.
I want to go 900 miles an hour in a magical levitating... like, that's what I want.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on the record. I don't care about the ships or any vehicle of Star Wars, really. I don't know how to explain it. I don't care about what thing you are in that makes you do the shooty pew pew.
No, I'm with you. I unfortunately got more. I have written fan works in the Star Wars universe now, and so I know a lot more than I want to about some of these ships and how they work and how they quote work in space terms. Well, I don't want to.
I know some things.
I like spaceships. Like, I'm a sucker for a pretty spaceship. I love spaceships in the way that some people like trains. Like,
you are allowed to have that special interest. But the biggest thing that I always come back to for Return of the Jedi is like, so a weed van blew up a weapon of mass destruction.
Yes, exactly.
That's exactly, that's the best thing about it.
And how cool
one of my favorite
that,
Tumblr posts is anything and everything that dunks on the Millennium Falcon.
That's the entire point of the Millennium Falcon. Like, I love that it's this absolute junk heap, but it is so iconic and beloved for all of that.
As when I was a kid, the garbage will do.
Yes.
When I was a kid, my absolute favorite car design was the Chevy Nova from the 80s because it was so stupid and boxy looking. It looked like a child's drawing of a car just with all the hard edges. And I'm like, that's it. That's perfect. I'm a big fan of cars that look like just like
hideous cartoon cars.
You should have driven that straight off the lot and to a junkyard. That just is where it belongs. Big fan of that.
So do we want to talk about the big emotional, Luke and Vader moments?
Yes.
I absolutely do, because I also need to get it out of my system that it will never not be funny that the Emperor's chair swivels around because Ian McDiarmid is doing little tippy-toe shuffles under his robe. Shout out to Ian McDiarmid. I can see the scenery between your teeth, and you are perfect in this role, sir. You really are.
Amazing.
God, wouldn't it be terrifying if somehow Emperor Palpatine ever returned?
It's bad enough that as I was watching this movie, I had to stop and stare into oblivion because I remembered Anakin Skywalker died at the age of 45.
45.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of his children made it to 55. Padme died when she was 27. Shmi probably didn't make it past 50. The only way a Skywalker lives past 60 is if they're Han Solo.
Oh.
He married into it. He doesn't count.
So yeah, that new Jedi Order film that's supposed to have Daisy Ridley in it. Ray,
listen,
I hope you have really good life insurance.
Ray's adopted. She didn't inherit the Skywalker gene for early death.
It just said Han got
gene.
I actually think that one of the things that is a mistake in the Star Wars universe is the Skywalker bloodline being so important.
That's for the sequels. We're not here to litigate that today.
But even here, because you have the, I am a Jedi like my father was before me.
Yeah. And Leia couldn't stand on her own. She had to be a Skywalker.
Right. I think that it's a pretty common trope that the powerful have powerful children and the powerful children must have powerful fathers or parents. I don't think it did great things for the Star Wars universe as a whole, because it meant that everyone, if they were powerful, you have to sit there and go, well, are they somehow a distant relative of a Skywalker? And it's like, do they have to be?
Right.
I mean, we kind of had this. This was not something that Return of the Jedi did. They kind of alluded to it in the end of Empire Strikes Back when Yoda goes, "No, there is another." But that was back when we were going to bring a different person in to be Luke's sister. And so, like, I don't think it's so much that Leia has to be special because she is a Skywalker, especially because in the entirety of the original trilogy, we never canonically see Leia use the Force. I know people out there argue that she used the dark side to kill Jabba, but the same people also argue that Han was using the Force when he managed to fire off that shot that saved Lando, or he knocked Boba into a Sarlaac. R.I.P. Boba Fett. I'm not going to care about you until you get your own show.
I don't care about Boba Fett even now. I can't explain to you why anyone cared at this juncture.
Because of the toy! Cool. Because of the toy! I swear to God, it's because... Look, the toy had a little button that you could press and it would fire a missile. It was so cool. It was the coolest toy. I swear to God, I had this toy. It was so good.
Introduction in the Star Wars Holiday Special. He shows up riding a dinosaur in a red lake that looks like period blood. I'm not advocating that you watch the Holiday Special, but Boba Fett in the Holiday Special is actually kind of freaking cool.
I will never watch the Holiday Special.
No, sorry. I might have as a kid because I watched, every adjacent thing as a child because it was on TV and I didn't have cable. We just had what aired. So it was a lot of Star Wars at the holidays, just generally. But I don't think
is issuing a challenge.
Yes. I mean, I don't think that it was a problem at this point that Leia ended up being Luke's sister. Like, I think that's fine to have that connection be resolved. But I think that later on, after the prequels, it just became, it had to be always a Skywalker.
Right.
For any sort of real power.
So I think that now
I feel that was more a sequels thing than the prequels, but...
I think it's a bigger problem to the sequels.
Once they've done 6 movies with it, then they have to round it out that way. So
I mean, I don't feel like that's a very fair argument when the prequels are literally about Anakin Skywalker.
Yes, I think that you get away with it by basically saying that the mainline Star Wars film set is the Skywalker saga.
That's why I think George wanted to do 9 movies about them, and So yeah, he made 9 movies about it, and it has to be all the side stories that are not about the Skywalkers.
I mean, I have not read Legends for the sake of my own sanity, but like Legends, plenty of Skywalker kids running around it. Honestly, I'm surprised nobody ever tried doing like the Encanto route of what happens when there's a Skywalker who doesn't have the Force.
Oh my God, that's the one for a pitch, for the pitches.
All right, there's still time.
Encanto, but there's Skywalkers.
And to be clear, I don't even mind the sequels tying in the Skywalker thing. I just feel as though you've made this giant universe, and then you're doing 9 movies, and they are all centering around this family and making it so anyone who could match, the Emperor, anyone with that kind of power is shown to have to be one of them. And then they try to break away with Rey.
This lovely character introduced to the sequels who was completely overlooked. His name is Finn, and I love him.
I know.
And then they sideline him. They make it so he might have the Force, and then he doesn't have it until off screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've gotten sidetracked again.
We were supposed to be talking about the Luke and the Vader.
Yes. The Luke and Vader stuff, the actual Skywalker stuff, we're supposed to care about still.
So, all right, I have been known to say many, many, many times that it is not Darth Vader that killed the Emperor. It is Anakin Skywalker. And that's why when you have oh gosh, I'm gonna get sidetracked again because I love the Ahsoka show so freaking much. I'm so sorry. In Ahsoka, when Hayden Christensen shows up playing the role of Anakin, to commune with Ahsoka on some sort of Jedi astral plane or something like that. I don't really know exactly what's going on there,
It's
but
called
it's
The World
so
The
Between
beautiful.
World Between Worlds. I know too much about this.
Please
so
please
sorry.
tell us more, because I fucking love that scene. I love
I
everything
don't know
about
enough
it.
about it actually, but I do.
It's basically a Nexus limbo afterlife place that got used as a Deus Ex Machina in Rebels so that Dave Filoni could weasel out of killing Ahsoka and bring her back.
Right.
Oh, so she's
And
been
it's
there
like,
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So it's kind of an Ahsoka thing.
I love Ahsoka as a character, but she is also Dave Filoni's special little Blorbo, and he will do anything to keep her around.
Yes.
That's fine. I love her too, and I want her to stay around forever. So yeah, give her special defying death by going to meet her master multiple times.
I mean, it does make
powers.
my eyebrow
I'm okay
twitch
with
because
that.
why can't my special little Blorbos live, Dave?
Right. So, Addie, what were you going to say about that confrontation?
I was going to say that, like, there's a couple of moments in that sequence that kind of solidify for me my separation of the two, where Anakin with the red eyes is Darth Vader, and
Yes.
Vader when he's at the point of seeing the difference, seeing his son and the Emperor, and realizing that what he has built is not a place that his family could live in. I think that's the moment that Darth Vader dies and Anakin returns, and it's for a character that has a mask on for 99.95% of the entire trilogy, Vader has so much emotion, so much emotive
Shout out to
movements.
James Earl Jones for that voice,
yes.
and to David Prowse for the physicality of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just...
You still kind of fucked up, David.
Why? What did he do?
David Prowse got extremely butthurt about being dubbed over by James Earl Jones to the point where he was arguing that they were trying to lure black audiences in by featuring a black voice.
Oh, I'm
and he
rolling
kind of
my eyes so hard.
Like, yeah. Look, David Prowse had a right to be annoyed with Lucasfilm, but he took it too far. He targeted the wrong people, and he just made himself a pain in the ass far too much. But I do kind of want to push back on the idea of this was the moment Vader died and Anakin came back, because given the circles of fanfiction I roll in, it becomes very easy to kind of push Anakin and Vader as a dual identity, multiple personality system kind of thing.
I'm not saying that.
That's what you're doing. But one of the things that I like about the prequels, and one of the things that I think is still represented here, is the idea that Vader is a mask. It's always Anakin. Vader is just the security blanket that he uses to allow himself to be the most evil version of himself.
Right.
No, you're right. So, all right, the way that I phrase that really does lend itself to looking at it as like two different people in the same skin. But no, Anakin is responsible for all of the actions that he has done, both as Lord Vader and as Anakin. And that responsibility is because he was fully conscious the whole time. There's nothing to suggest that he wasn't. So I agree with you there that it's not really that Vader has died, but it's that there's an emotional takeover. I think that the way that the Force works is through emotion, and the reason why both Jedi and Sith are so world-breaking and they build power structures that tend to rule, whether it's the Jedi Council or the Sith, they rise on top and they enforce their own emotional way on others. And in both cases, it's bad, actually. I don't like the Jedi Council. I think the Jedi Council are evil. From my perspective, I'm a gray Jedi through and through, and that's what it should be.
So I feel as though, I don't think the movies necessarily are setting us up to see when Vader talks about himself as separate from Anakin, as that being the correct point of view, I do think that certain parts of fandom run with that as it being like a switch that's flipped.
Yeah.
And I just don't think there's no oh your Sith identity takes over, or you're either Darth Vader or you're Anakin. No, you're one person. You can use your
Right.
Sith name. You can be Kylo Ren all you want, but you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't. There's
Oh,
no
God.
switch that flips. There's no switch that flips. You were always that person. And so whenever they do draw a line, like, no, I'm not this person, or this person, you're not Darth Vader, you're my father. Like, I do think that diminishes the responsibility and the truth of it. Darth Vader was something, like, he was telling himself, no, I'm changed, I'm this, I'm not the person I was, because that's what he needed. But the reality of it was, he was always Anakin.
That's highlighting a very interesting flaw within Luke.
Right.
Luke still cannot conceive of the reality that Vader is his father means that Vader is his father. Like,
right.
There is still good in him.
And I mean, that can be true, but it's not that he's different people. It's like, yes, you're Vader, yes, you're Anakin, you're both. They're always both.
And like, there's a whole discourse about disability rep and the way Luke looks at his mechanical hand, and like, then he sees Vader's mechanical hand slapped up and is like, oh no, I don't want to be like this. And that's, prosthetics are not evil, okay? Like, I know there's all this expanded lore about how that suit is basically a torture device. And like, I've had people talk to me about how like Vader technically should be dead because like there's a piece of his vertebrae missing or something because of the way his skeleton flashes up when he's picking Palpatine up to chuck him down a hole. I'm like, I'm sorry, we're in a series with space wizards.
Well, that's what I found funny. I was watching at the end, I'm like, so Luke gets, force lightning so hard and so much, and he lives. And then, when Vader, yeets Palpatine, he dies in that brief contact. I'm like, really? Is it because his suit shorted out? Or, is it just, he died because we needed him dead, and Luke didn't die because he's Luke Skywalker? Like, that's trying to figure out how the force kills you is... I
think it's more the latter, but also we can pretend it's the former. That the suit shorted out, and that was...
Yeah.
Because I had the same question when we get to the sequels. I'm like, why did Rey die?
That breathing happens for a reason. Like, that's part of why we had the whole hyperbaric chamber thing in Empire Strikes Back. Like, Vader cannot survive outside that suit.
So I don't know if they made it clear that it was shorting the suit out, or if that was just, retcon, if my brain was trying to make sense of
that's
it.
That's supposed to be, like, part of what all the electricity going over Vader and his skull flashing.
Gotcha.
It's like amplified or something. I don't know.
Yeah. That's fair. I just remembered that I didn't remember that Luke had got shocked for that long compared to Vader and lived, and so that was just
I've watched this movie so many times, and even this last time that I watched it, I just let that go by me, and it just, like, I accept it. It never occurred to me to think about, Luke got shocked for a way longer.
Jeez, poor Luke is being tortured here. I didn't recall it being that long.
Luke probably has, like, an amazing collection of those Lichtenberg scars running over his body now. But that also kind of brings me to, I love the scene of Luke right as Vader, Anakin, whatever you want to call him, dies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are still some weird as fuck line readings, but I love that scene. And I think Sebastian Shaw is great. And we watched the specialized editions of the original trilogy in part to try and get as close to the theatrical experience as possible. However, my dumb little Hayden Christensen loving brain kind of wants to see what Hayden Christensen's take would be on this scene. I am not advocating that he should replace Sebastian Shaw in the movie the way that he did in the special editions.
No.
I also think that kind of clouds the waters on the whole, yes, Vader and Anakin are two different people thing. Like, I get what George is going for thematically. That doesn't necessarily mean I agree with it, even if I love looking at Hayden Christensen. I think it would be like a cool anniversary special edition to like let Hayden do those moments, especially because, you know, remember, he's the same age that Anakin was when he died.
And especially because I will say straight out, I was not a Hayden fan when those movies were released. Partially because I was, you know, like teens, early 20s, and everything was bullshit. Nothing that Ernest could have ever gotten to me. So I was not a Hayden fan. But then, you know, now I have nostalgia that's a little bit retroactive, and I've seen what he can do as an actor with that role in some of the later stuff, like in the Ahsoka appearance, and I think he's done some phenomenal work just in these little pieces. So I would love to see more of him in that role and more of him in the nostalgic stuff that I remember.
When the prequels came out and I was a dumb little idiot, I think I also kind of discounted Hayden's, but I kind of just didn't really like the movies at all. And then I got into college, and then I was thinking about it, and I was like, if there's a movie where Samuel L. freaking Jackson is boring, it's not Hayden's fault. It's just not.
I never thought it was Hayden's fault, but I just never emotionally resonated with either. You know, I thought I love Natalie Portman, but I just didn't enjoy the movies as a whole, so I didn't have the emotional connection then that I do now watching what he does with the character, you know, 20 years later. Like I feel it now where I did before.
I was prepared to, like, even back then, I was prepared to go to bat and say, like, no, Hayden Christensen is fine. There's nothing wrong with him. He was given the line to read.
Yes, absolutely.
I hate sand. And he did it like that's his job, because it is. And it sucks, but it's not his fault.
It was writing, and it was to extend direction, because he and Natalie Portman were playing it more genuinely and were told to bring it back and like play it more stoically than they had been. So what can you do?
We're getting kind of off track again, but
we are.
I think that's also just like George Lucas's brand, because again, we're seeing it in this movie of those
I have it in my notes too. I was going back to it.
Yes. Ellie, the way Ellie put it in a previous episode is that George Lucas is a special effects producer who fell into being the most prolific director of children's movies. And I kind of agree, because even in watching the despecialized cut, you can kind of tell that what he really wants to be doing is learning how to play with all his new toys.
Yes.
And letting Marsha and whoever else pick up the slack.
Yes.
And there are some amazing bits of classic film, like when the Emperor shows up on the Death Star, so much of that is a goddamn painting.
Yeah.
But then there's stuff where like you can clearly see the seams of like them flying in front of a projector screen, and you're like, oh, George.
But no, the dialogue was clunky even here. I was taking notes on this last, you know, emotional speech, and I'm like, nothing that Hayden Christensen had to say was any clunkier than some of these lines that Mark is having to say. It was always like this.
It was always like this. And like I brought up before, that like the Ewoks are just Jedi's version of the Gungans, and like it's always been a certain amount of like weird slapstick combined with themes that are way too grown up for the audience, combined with clunky dialogue, combined with the occasional an actor is allowed to run with it and it gets awesome. So like
flashes of brilliance in there.
And the thing is,
of the source material.
And the thing is, it's the visual language of Star Wars that is so incredibly like that gets us all going. It's like the worn, weathered look of all of the spaceships. It is the lived in nature of like every planet you visit looks like there's grime everywhere. There's like people that live here, right? It's not clean. It's not super clean.
It's fun to me that we're talking about this right after we finished Musica Universalis, which you are both in, because our BBEG, the producer, I thought of a lot of Hollywood people for that. George Lucas was not one of them, because George Lucas is kind of like the ultimate reteller. He likes very simple story beats and tropes and very, now to us, archaic styles of storytelling. but he likes finding new ways to tell that.
Yes.
He's a master of visual
the
language.
cool stuff he likes.
Yeah.
And he did invent, like, the Star Wars universe is brilliant. As much as I will at some of the like actual story beats themselves, the universe he created, there isn't anything like it. You know, there's something that resonates and has lasted for 40 years now, and keeps spawning more things that people love. And so I do give him a lot of credit for that.
The best of the Star Wars films to me are when you have someone to do the visual language who is essentially set free, and then at the same time you rein them in, right? Somebody has to be willing to take a red pen and say, George, who talks like this? And I think that by the time you get to Return of the Jedi, not very many people were already able to say, George, this is gonna be dumb. And so that's the first of the Star Wars mainline movies to be hindered by that in some ways. And then when you get 20 years later and he's doing the prequels, is it 20 years later? I don't remember when.
It's closer to 15, I think, based on the film.
Yeah.
But we should point out, this wasn't directed by George, and George was not the sole screenwriter credit. We've got Richard Markham in the director's chair. We've got Lawrence Kasdan co-screenwriting it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And 80s movies of this type were all kind of cheesy. Like, it wasn't any cheesier as far as the dialogue sometimes as anything else that I watched at that age. So
that's
a lot of this is retroactive. We're looking at it and going, oh, that was cringy. But it was not at the time.
I mean, I think it's also just we've spent 40 plus years putting Star Wars up on a pedestal, and now we kind of have to process, like, how do we unpedestal, and we can't, like, shout out to Kyle and his whole "this is Star Wars without Star Wars" video. I love that video so
Oh, I have to watch that.
But, like, you can't not Star War now. Like, even if you never see the Star Wars movies, you live in it because someone did a reference to it in their show, or somebody in a show is a fan of Star Wars, or somebody...
It's inescapable. Like, even like I said, I was famously not a fan. I consumed all of the movies, and, like, I had, neutral feelings, neutral positive, but I was not a fan. And, like, I found, the fandom around it kind of annoying at times, and then I got pulled in when I had a very young child, and the sequels came out, and I was just full of nostalgia and feelings. So you're gonna get pulled in at some point. You just are.
There's a line in How I Met Your Mother that is to the effect of, the only people who haven't seen Star Wars are the characters in Star Wars because they lived them. They lived the Star Wars.
I don't know if it's still true, but, like, Natalie Portman said she hasn't shown her kids the prequels because she's like, I don't think they're ready to understand, mommy dying in childbirth.
Oh.
I don't know if that's still the case, but, like, I know that Billy Lord considers carrying on the legacy of Princess Leia a big thing, so, like, I have to imagine her children are being flooded with Star Wars things.
Right. I've heard Adam Driver say that his young son doesn't like his movies, doesn't like Kylo Ren, doesn't like the dinosaur movie, doesn't like movies. He was like, oh, I did this dinosaur movie to show my kids. My kid hates movies. That's adorable.
That kid's going places. I hope it's not Nepo baby places, but, good for you, kid. What else is there to say? Do I get on my soapbox and advocate that the ending should have been polyamory with Lando and Han and Leia?
I mean, you can, and I'll agree with you. I don't necessarily think that the world of that era would have created such a film, but I think that...
absolutely not. Like...
I'm here for
We're
it.
only at the point now when we can be like, yeah, Lando wanted to fuck a droid, but... At this point, I have no idea what the deal is with the Lando Calrissian movie series, whatever. I don't know. I know Billy D. Williams has complicated feelings on Donald Glover picking up the Lando flag, but...
I try not to read too much of actor opinions on things because it ruins my experience of watching things.
Kind of the same.
That doesn't surprise me.
I mean, that is valid, but I do love Carrie Fisher's reaction to this movie of, like, parents coming up and it's like, what am I supposed to tell my kid about you being in a bikini in this movie? And she's like, Tell her that I killed the slug who put me in it, and then I took it off. Queen shit.
So I'm curious, and I just maybe tell me if you don't want to know, but I'm curious about what Billy D. Williams thinks about Childish Gambino.
If I'm remembering it correctly, he was basically saying that the Lando of the Disney era is lacking in the Riz. I am not quoting directly, but
What?
Dude.
I
No. Okay, there were many
Oh.
opinions
I think
that I
his-
would have accepted that
I
one.
think his opinion has more to do with the writing than anything else.
Maybe.
Okay,
Because
fair
they
enough.
might have,
Yeah.
the Disney, some of the Disney stuff has, I mean, it is what it is. I enjoy it for what it is, but I can understand that being, yes, that makes sense.
I mean, I do get it, because this has been a major problem with the Disney Star Wars, is just trying to recapture what worked about the
Yes.
original trilogy. And so there
Yeah.
are absolutely times when Donald Glover just feels like he's doing a Billy D. Williams impression, and you can
Yeah.
see him trying to get down all the Billy D. Williams isms,
Mm.
which it's not as bad as, like, AIing over the two guys who both look
Yes,
like
yes.
Mark Hamill. They already
Yes.
both look like Mark Hamill.
Right, I was amazed. I think the second one is the one that I looked at and I went, you can't convince me that's not Mark Hamill. Like, you're really gonna AI over this guy who, if you just showed me that picture and said, yeah, this was a young Mark Hamill, and I'm like, of course.
Like, it's not as bad as that, but,
Yeah.
you know, like,
But I will say, apparently, I had read that Hayden Christensen was trying to match James Earl Jones's intonations for some of his lines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And every time I think about hearing those invaders in the deep Vader voice, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
So I could see that
He's
just being a
doing the
stylistic
work,
thing
man.
that they put into, like, hey, if you're going to do this role younger, you have to pull from what we know because the audiences like it that way. I don't know. I'm like, directing by committee annoys me, but there's a reason for it.
I mean, there's a difference between doing a specific acting choice and there's just trying to
Yes.
copy someone.
Yes.
The one thing that I would say is that that's often, I think, maybe a mistake, is that, like,
Yeah.
what we know already is that the universe of Star Wars is one that rewrites itself, and it's totally fine, right? We're totally okay with later canon overwriting older canon, and we
Hey,
accept
Leia, how do you remember your mother? How do you remember your mother, Leia? You were a baby. Leia, you
and then
were
they
an
retconned it to be
infant.
like, oh, she had visions. Like, you know, we have to accept a certain amount of retconning and it being just okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think that might be not necessarily an acting choice by Donald Glover so much as, you know, direction and saying, you know, we have to match. We have to try to match this performance.
As far as I know, I don't think Billy D. Williams is, like, actively beefing with Donald Glover.
No,
He's
I
just
don't
like,
think that's the case.
no,
That's fair.
Disneylando does not have the same riz as my Lando.
That's fair.
And I think that also, he might have also applied that to Rise of Skywalker's Lando, because, God, Rise of Skywalker Lando was just, that was a waste of Lando. And I kind of feel like if they hadn't lost Carrie and already killed off Han, they would have even had Lando. Except for the people who are saying, no, Finn has to be Lando's son. Like, not everybody has to be related to everybody.
No, but then they implied that Jana was Lando's, like, daughter or niece or something. There was an implication that was followed up on in the novel, and it sucked. That's
what I was kind of getting at before, is that, like, the idea of these dynasties is just, I think, limiting and not useful, really. Like, I don't necessarily want to see the Skywalker in Rey, right? I want to see Rey be Rey. I don't necessarily need everyone to be related to each other.
Is it possible to blame Once Upon a Time on this?
Oh, God, yes. I mean, it's not possible to blame Once Upon a Time for it, because Once Upon a Time, like, this trope, this trend predates Once Upon a Time. But yeah, absolutely, they're guilty of it.
Once Upon a Time codified a lot of the shit, and Once Upon a Time also loved referencing Star Wars. Like,
I have never seen any of it, so
like during season 6, they had this whole thing where the evil queen split herself into a good half and an evil half because of something with Jekyll and Hyde, and there was like references of like, we both watched those movies, and Darth Vader was not as evil as he turned out to be. I'm like, stop. I know that Once Upon a Time is on ABC, which is owned by Disney, and Disney owns Star Wars now, but stop it.
Right.
Stop it. Stop it.
I did think it was very funny when Marvel started referencing Star Wars films. Have you seen that really old movie?
At what point is Peter Parker going to realize that Nick Fury is Mace Windu?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be hilarious.
Leia's mom.
It would be so hilarious if Peter Parker is like, just like, hey, do I know you from somewhere? Don't you have a purple lightsaber?
Honestly, let Samuel L. Jackson have a purple lightsaber in the MCU to make up for Secret Invasion.
I still haven't watched.
I've also not seen. I refuse. I'm behind on my Star Wars and my MCU because Disney just keeps churning things out faster than I, person with 2 children and limited energy, can watch them.
I have no children.
I have no children, and I'm still behind on Star Wars. I still haven't seen Andor, and at this point, I'm just waiting for it to come up on the podcast.
Andor is good. You should watch it.
I've heard it's really good. I
have heard that Andor is good. I just haven't gotten to it. I have like 15 more seasons of Dimension 20 to finish first.
The reason I'm not done with the Clone Wars is because my kids are watching it with me, and so I watch it. A, I don't like it. B, there's that. A, I don't like it, and B, they want to watch it too. So.
A moment of silence for all the Bothans who died to bring us this podcast.
Oh, the Bothans.
Oh my gosh. I won't be silent.
Such a weird throwaway line that became a meme to the point where, like, Family Guy is fucking referencing it. In an episode with Carrie Fisher. That was another thing I loved about Carrie Fisher, is just her willingness to mock herself in other TV appearances.
Well, I will say, I want to add one more thing, though, that all stormtroopers are bad because the profession is a bastard.
I don't think anybody is disputing that.
Okay.
And we're specifically referring to stormtroopers because we don't have the energy to talk about the clone troopers, at least not
right.
Like, I support the clone troopers insofar as it gets Temuera Morrison a paycheck, and also Rex is my boy.
I admit I also don't care about the clones very much. Like, you can't convince me to care about them, but I could be wrong. Like, I'm willing to watch, what is it, The Bad Batch and be proven wrong. But at this juncture, I'm like, there's so many stories that could be told, but do we have to tell every story?
I would rather tell you to watch Rebels.
Rebels is on my watch with kids list, but I might bump it up to my watch by myself list first because it does look good.
Also, it will give you more context for the Ahsoka series.
Which is phenomenal. I cannot say it enough.
Yeah.
And I ship Sabine and Shin so badly. Yeah. And yes, I do.
What a
I
surprise.
Recognize
what a
Shin,
surprise.
Shin is so cool. I want to fix her. I think I can fix her. There's still good in her, I swear.
I have to watch Ahsoka because it has Night Sister content, and I love the Survivor games. My girl Marin is a Night Sister, and so I have to watch it for more content.
Yep, this just in, everybody. Addie has left the building wearing black youth pastor getup. She is going to try and save Shin.
I would do it.
All right, but Addie, before you go, I need to ask you both. Is the Force with Return of the Jedi?
Oh God, yes. Absolutely. Yes. Always. The Force is with it always. It's not my favorite, but it is.
And it's a yes from me too, in spite of the dunks we've taken on. Like I said, I don't know if this is my favorite or New Hope is, but it ranks above Empire, which means the Force is with it.
Oh, I would rank Empire above this, but at the same time, like, I can't, I would watch this movie a
can't
million times
relitigate this.
anyway.
Just I lay out my issues in the episode. You can listen to the episode. And
I will have to go back and listen because I have not watched Empire in years now. So I would have to. I can't rank the OT at this point. They just are.
That's
all
fair.
right. Who has pluggables?
I do not. I don't have a life right now. I'm sorry.
Weren't you just in something?
I was in Musica Universalis, which should be up on YouTube at this point.
It is
Broken up into acts now.
Yep. And I'm also in music. All three of us were in Musica, and it is up on YouTube on the Worlds Elsewhere Theater Company channel, which is at WE Theater Co. Yes, WE Theater Co. And it is awesome. You should watch it. Yeah. And Worlds Elsewhere is going to be doing more things in the coming months as soon as we've got our stuff under wraps and this show is wrapped and everybody's paid and everything. So yeah, look forward to it.
As for me, I will ask that you keep the spirit of Star Wars alive by supporting artists through the Entertainment Community Fund and by taking action to support anti-imperial and anti-colonial movements across the globe, partially by using links provided below and by taking action in your community. And you can find me on the wider internet as La Femme Fictionale, including on YouTube, Twitter, and Tumblr, where you can also find the blog for this show. Our theme music is provided by Refractory Period, the two girls' one-beat synth-pop sensation. You can follow them on Instagram at Refractory Period the band. To further support this podcast, please subscribe to us on your platform of choice, leave reviews, consider joining Patreon, and share with your friends to boost our visibility. And now it's time to turn to the Chance Cube to decide where our journey takes us next.
A 1.
A 1.
Nat 1.
Nope, a 1's a good thing in this case because that means next up is American Graffiti.
Nice.
Okay.
We will see you all next time. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay beautiful, and may the Force
be with you.
May the Force be with you.
And also with you.